Hello and welcome to another episode of Evolution Now. I'm your host, Flora White, and today I'm here with Fabi Bouthillette, a leadership coach who is helping men to bring more courage, wisdom, and love into their lives. Let's get into it. Fabi, I am so happy to have you here with me today. Thank you for being here on Evolution Now.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's just start by how we know each other. I have known Fabi for how many years?
Well, since sixth grade.
Sixth grade. We don't need to date ourselves. What, 30 plus?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, a long time. So, seen you grow up. We've known each other for years and years. And now you're at a point where you are coaching others.
Yep.
Paying it forward. Everything that you've learned over the years, you're bringing forth to others. So let's talk a little bit about why this is so relevant right now. You know, you're a leadership coach who specializes in helping men. You also help women. But for the purposes of today's conversation, we're going to talk about the work you do with men.
Sure.
Because in today's world, it is just, there's a deficit of men's leadership. Scott Galloway has written about this in the book Notes on Being a Man, as well as many others. So tell us, Fabi, why is leadership for men so important in 2025?
Yeah. I think your mom just showed us that Scott Galloway book, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to make the point real quick. There's a lot of others. The well-known ones like Iron John, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover came out in '90. I just looked this up. Way of the Superior Man, been out since '97. Fire in the Belly, one that I got a lot out of, I think was '91, maybe even the '80s. Anyway, my point is the men's work stuff feels very, very current, and it's hot right now. But it's been around. Like there's been awareness around it for at least 3 decades, the very least 3 decades. I think quite simply we're at a point in our species evolution that what are men even needed for?
Can you tell me what you mean by that?
Well, we men don't have to literally build walls and defend them anymore constantly for the safety of our communities. We don't have to be out hunting all the time. We don't have to be as physical as our biology made us to be to provide safety and just provide for our communities in general anymore. It doesn't take just pure testosterone and pure physicality anymore. And women can do pretty much everything a man can do, and they are also the ones that obviously give birth. And so it's like, well, really, truly, that fundamental question, what is a man's specialty anymore? That's it.
Right.
It just starts with that question, really.
So women are in the workforce. Women are the ones who have children. Where does that put men? What is men's role now in 2025?
There's still the trad roles, and that trad is a term you hear out there, the traditional roles of providing safety and security, providing resources for the family. I think that's important because men derive self-esteem from it. I do think men should still be plugged into that traditional energy because we feel good doing that. But also, it's funny, my girlfriend, whom you know, Darcy, she showed me a clip from this, a tarot reader, actually, or some kind of wooey spiritual woman she was watching on YouTube. And the woman made the point about masculinity. So part of the masculine experience is that we men get to forge ourselves into becoming a tool and able to embody what is needed to meet some mission. And so like the tenets of my business, courage, wisdom, and love, I'm always working with men to be like, where is there more opportunity for courage, wisdom, and love in your life in general, but also towards a specific goal, aim point? That's where things like authenticity come in. Like some men want to be construction workers. Some men may want to build things with their hands. Some men are more, like me, coaching. Coaching is, I feel like, my destiny, actually. So how do I turn myself into the ultimate instrument of bringing courage, wisdom, and love into the world? How do I turn myself into an instrument of helping other people feel self-esteem and self-actualization? But that could be anything. I think that is very much a masculine energy. and it requires direction. It requires kind of self-awareness, and that is why we're facing a masculine crisis right now. I think men are really like, what do I even do with myself? As we already said, because like, what does it even mean to be a man? But also just with the world and the state it is, what do I do with myself?
So this is a great transition. You mentioned becoming a tool, that you're a tool to help other men in your coaching practice.
Yeah.
You've gone through a journey in your own life to get you here. Can you tell us a little bit about the different chapters of your life and how you arrived at this point, Fabi?
We've known each other since sixth grade. And so, like, in the last few days, as we've been catching up and getting ready for this, you asked me about my dad and if I was willing to talk about it, and I am. But he died in 10th grade, right? And so when my parents broke up when I was 14, I lived with just my dad from age 14 to 16. And then he died pretty much right after my 16th birthday. And then I was with just my mom through the end of high school. So I do have this sensitivity to what it means to lose the male role model. And my dad wasn't really, he loved me and he did his best, but he didn't set me up for success that well either. Have you heard of Rich Man Poor or Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yeah.
My dad was poor dad. So he did his best. And then at age 16, I lost the man that was just kind of trying to do his best. And that's not why I went to the Naval Academy, by the way. So that's where I ended up in college. I had already wanted to go to the Naval Academy, but once I was there and in the Navy, I found myself looking for the male officers, the male authority around me in the military that I liked, and I really clung to it pretty hard.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
about that? When you lose a male role model, your father, regardless of whether he's optimal in all ways or if there were areas that left something to be desired, like most of us, I mean, nobody's parent is perfect, maybe some more or less. Did it hurt any less? Or when a young man loses his male role model, it's no matter what, that's got to be extremely difficult. Was it complex? Not that there's anything to compare it to, but does it matter if he was a perfect dad or not, or does it just matter that you lost your male role model at that point in time?
That is a great question. I mean, I think very broad picture about this. Like, I think about our species as a whole evolving. And I think the point about losing my dad was just that this is so much in hindsight. Like, I realized he wasn't teaching me how to be a man. He was loving and providing to the degree that he could, but so many of the skills of being a man that I've learned and that I've gotten from other men, and I've put together my own vision of it, and now I'm going out, coaching and teaching, isn't because I've got it all figured out, but it's because I've realized, like, no one's really teaching boys how to be men in general. There really isn't much a consensus in our country anyway. There are in the traditional communities, for sure. So
Right. There's
so
nobody who said, here's the playbook.
right.
Here's what you do.
Right. So no one gave my dad the playbook either. It's not that he got the playbook and dropped the ball with me. No one gave him the playbook either. Paradoxically, I think, or ironically, I think part of going from boy to man, is getting out from under the shadow of your father. Even if you have this perfect father who's an absolute amazing person and is giving you all the right advice about being a man, I think a big part of being a man is making your own way. So I just had to.
We're talking about why it's important for men to get out from under their male role model
Yep.
and stand on their own 2 feet
Yep.
because they derive confidence and meaning from doing that.
Yep.
And confidence is extremely important for men, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have to know a man, I don't think can really feel good. He can feel good, but maybe not 100%. Like, I think our self-esteem is so dependent on knowing we're good enough. So how does a man know he's good enough? Well, he's got to spend time with other men. In some cultures, it's very distinct in tribal cultures. The ceremony is very clear. Like, you're going to go through this ritual, and now you're a man in the tribe. And being a man in the tribe means that we expect you to be independently able to provide. Quite literally, go out and hunt an animal on your own and bring it back for everyone to eat. Like, it can be that literal. Where is that today?
Right, what's the equivalent in the 21st century?
Well, I mean, the equivalent is you go get a job and provide, but what's the equivalent ceremony? What's the equivalent ritual that says, boom, boy, you are now a man? I think this point about getting out from underneath the shadow of your father, my father was just removed. His death. So at age 16, it wasn't like I had to grow up and then go through the process of individuating myself and standing apart from my own father. He was just gone. So on one hand, like, okay, I think that really made me a resilient man. And I thankfully, for whatever reason, knew to look for other role models and build my own model of masculinity for myself. And it took me a while.
Was that a hard decision to make?
To do what?
To enroll in the Navy?
I was already pretty much set on wanting to go to the Naval Academy before my father died. So it's not like he died and then I had to figure out what to do. I knew what I wanted to do. And I knew what I wanted to do because we grew up in Arlington. And I grew up in a neighborhood just a mile and a half from the Pentagon. I actually live there now again, funny enough. But so and my best friend's dad had been a submarine officer.
Aaron Pardee.
Yeah, Aaron Pardee. So the idea of, whose father was a huge role model to me, by the way. So the idea, I guess at some point in ninth grade, it finally occurred to me like, oh, I could do that. I could one day be one of these officers. These guys I see walking around my neighborhood, I could become one of them. And it was just very interesting to me because it was service, and I care about service, which is a big point to make in general. I think men more in general got to be plugged into higher service and just be a badass. Like, oh, they're going to pay for me to go to college and learn all these cool things that I get to do in the Navy. And I knew Navy is the branch I wanted. And they're going to pay me to do it. And I get to be a leader. And I get to wear a cool uniform even and all that. I mean, sure.
You always loved wearing uniforms.
I have. I miss it still even.
And the Annapolis Naval Academy is extremely reputable. It is.
It is.
Well respected.
I'll tell you something that happened on my dad's deathbed. And it ties into this getting out from father's shadow. Is the last thing I said to my dad, really, and he was on life support and not responsive, as I hugged him, was like, hey, Dad, now I'm going to choke up. I promise I'm not going to mess up. I won't fall apart. I will get into the Naval Academy. I may have said Naval Academy or Air Force Academy. I was still entertaining the Air Force, but I knew I wanted Navy. And that was the last thing I ever said to him. And walked out, and then he passed that night. So I made a commitment to my father, and paradoxically, like, I couldn't just do it for him. I was doing it for myself. So on one hand, it's very important for a boy that wants to become a man, to get out from underneath the shadow of his father. And I couldn't let this commitment I made to my dad on his deathbed really just take over my life. Fortunately, it is really what I wanted to do. So I made that promise to him, and I feel like it was like as he was lying there unresponsive on life support, like that was like the final act of fatherhood he did for me, was just hear me make a commitment, and I followed through on that commitment.
You honored that commitment.
I honored that commitment, and I didn't end up doing a full Navy career because that was my choice, right? I have blazed my own trail in life, but I did also honor that last commitment to my father, and I think it's cool that I've been able to do both. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And you've done so much that I think Carl would have been proud of.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I just attended a funeral in Arlington National Cemetery.
For who?
Pierre
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 Foltz?
Foltz's father,
Oh,
and and last week, and they put him in the columbarium, his urn in the wall, and it said, Richard Foltz, Airman First Class U.S. Air Force, and my dad was also Airman First Class U.S. Air Force, and he's in the next court over in the columbarium at National Cemetery. So I just saw my dad's final resting place last week, and yeah, like what you were saying, he would have been proud of me. Certainly, I mean, he was just a junior enlisted guy in the Air Force, and I was an officer in the Navy. I mean, I think another point about men is we should supersede our fathers in some way. We don't have to, in my case, like literally attain a higher rank in the military than he had, but we all should, not just men. We all should
right.
build on what came before us.
Right. Stand on the shoulders of our fathers
Yeah.
and so on and so forth.
And I have. I mean, if there's anything to be proud of, is I have. I think pretty easily in a way, but I have. Yeah. Yeah.
And you have done so many things since then. You've worked with Gore Vidal. You were closely connected to him.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I know we hadn't planned to, but
No, we hadn't planned to. Well, here's the thing.
and for those who don't know who Gore Vidal is, for those living under a rock, can you tell us?
Well, Gore Vidal would have been 99 years old or 100 this year.
Another father figure in a way, right?
Gore is certainly one of the most famous authors of the 20th century, and everyone I meet under the age of 50, they usually have not heard of him. Everyone I meet older, certainly the boomers, they've heard of him, and
We are under 50.
we are under 50. So when I name drop Gore Vidal to like a boomer, they really light up. They're like, "Holy cow, you lived with Gore Vidal for 2 years?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, massive as a novelist.
What are some of his known works?
He's known for I think, Chronicles of American History, or calls them Narratives of Empire, a series of 7 books, starting with Burr. And the second one's Lincoln. So historical novels. He's known as possibly the greatest historical novelist of the 20th century. A lot of comedies like Myra Breckinridge, people recognize because it was made into a movie. Not a very good movie, but he wrote the book for it. And as just a general essayist, he's known. And he's known also for debating William Buckley. There was the Best of Frenemies or Best of Enemies, which was a Netflix documentary. So he did get kind of popular appeal through that. So William Buckley, the conservative, and Gore Vidal, the liberal, butting heads. They sort of invented the talking heads, butting heads on TV. Like they were the first 2 guys to do it. William Buckley on the right, Gore Vidal on the left, debating, I think, in the 1960 leading up to the 1960 presidential election, the first time on TV, 2 guys,
Was that Nixon?
That was Kennedy. No,
Kennedy?
it was Kennedy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
So, another father figure in your life.
yeah. Yeah, so I happened to get introduced to this guy, Gore Vidal, because I had a reputation as a former Navy officer doing like anti-war activism. And then someone introduced me to Gore in Los Angeles, and that was right up his alley. Here was this young former Navy officer, handsome perhaps, and who knew American history and cared about this country and the path of this country, but had also served. Gore's father actually went to West Point and had been an Army officer. So he hired me to be his personal assistant, and I absolutely turned him into a father figure. I clung to him pretty hard for 2 years because there was this man who really, for the first person in general that I had met, who kind of embodied the intellectualism that I liked. And he's saying things about American history that I was like, yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And here this man has decades of writing, giving his viewpoint on American history, and it was what I had just started dabbling in. Gore also I watched my father get dementia and pass away while I was working for Gore. I watched him get dementia. So there was this parallel with him where my father was a good bit older than me. I watched him get sick and die. And then I watched Gore Vidal get sick, and he didn't die while I was working for him, but a few years after I stopped working for him, he did. So I also had this experience of being a caretaker.
Did going through that a second time with Gore Vidal provide any sort of closure or healing from the first time that it happened through your father?
I don't know that it was so much about that. I think what I think if anything it may have even been a little detrimental. Like I was clinging to being Gore Vidal's caretaker too much as my identity. And the thing we just mentioned where you need to get out from underneath the shadow of your father figure, I actually needed to do that with Gore. I was just so enamored by him and being like, oh my God, I'm Gore Vidal's personal assistant and this is amazing and I get to learn all these things I want to learn about. And especially at the beginning, he was very keen on empowering me. I think maybe I wasn't quite ready for it. So I needed to get out from underneath his shadow and make my own way. That was just what got reinforced with him. Funny enough, I almost just kind of think of it that way now that you mention it. I realized that that's what needed to happen. So when he did let me go as his assistant, it really bothered me. I was like, God, what do I do now?
And what did you do? I mean, skip ahead. We'll go back to the Navy
Yeah.
bit, but how far after that did you decide to launch your coaching business? And was that all part of your evolution to get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, leaving my job with Gore sent me into probably the darkest time in my life. Because, look, I went Naval Academy, then I did my active duty service. I got out. I taught high school for a bit. I lived in New York City, which was very cool.
I remember.
I was directed. I was getting involved with veterans activism, even the anti-war side of it. And then I get introduced to Gore Vidal, and then my time with him ends, and I'm 30 years old, and now I'm 30, and I'm like, oh, what do I do now?
All that before 30.
All that before 30. My 20s were crazy, for sure, and my 30s became more this kind of like inner shadow work period, which I know you want to maybe discuss that, but so from age 30 to 34, I was just working part-time jobs and journaling a ton.
Making up for lost time.
I was catching up with myself. I wrote my book at that time. I wrote a book.
I was in LA. I visited you,
Yeah.
and you showed me. I got to see the first few pages
Yeah.
of your manuscript.
So I wrote this whole thing about my time in the Navy. I wrote then this whole thing about my time in New York, anti-war. I wrote this whole thing about living with Gore Vidal and what I got out of that.
What's the name of your book, Fabi?
It's Gore Vidal's Last Stand, although I might change it to just call it My American Initiation, because it's not all about Gore. I like the title My Gore Vidal's Last Stand, but editors will be keen to tell you to kill your idols.
To get out from your shadow of your father.
That's a great point. That is a freaking great point. I like that. Thank you. Yes, Gore Vidal's Last Stand, or is it Fabi's First Stand? Yeah, it's Fabi's First Stand. Me going, no, this is what my life is about. And yeah, Gore Vidal's a chapter in my life. I'm not a chapter in Gore's life. I am, but yes, that's what that book was. So I wrote the book during that time. I kept myself afloat with part-time jobs. And then I've always been keen on like transformation and spiritual transformation and self-development. I just have been. And then I went to this massive transformational leadership workshop in 2015. And that's when I was like, oh, I could do this. Now, a lot of people go to transformational leadership workshops and then decide they want to be leadership coaches or life coaches or something. That's a very common phenomenon, especially these days. And I was one of them.